Hello, today I'm going to show you how to create a CRUD application in PHP using AJAX and HTML5 admin templates. Please note that in this exercise, we are not going to use any framework like Laravel or Yi or Cake PHP and so on. It is just pure PHP code and JavaScript and jQuery and AJAX. So before we start, please note that we are supposed to have the following in place. One, we need to have XAMPP installed on our computer. XAMPP is free, so you can just go online, search for XAMPP and ensure you install the latest version that is available. After installing XAMPP, we need to start it. We need to start the Apache server and the PHP myadmin section for us to be able to run our application. So once you have XAMPP installed, you will have to go to the XAMPP control panel. Then you will start Apache and MySQL. So before we continue with this application, I would like to show you one or two things. There is a video I did on Apache shutdown unexpectedly error. Remember, in that video, I said that whenever you experience or whenever you come across such an error, then you need to go to config under Apache. Go to config, then http config, then you look for the listen port and the local host. Ensure you change those port numbers because such errors normally appear or occur because of conflict in the ports. Maybe there's another application using the same port, and that is why you will come across such an error. So apart from making settings in httpd.config, you also need, in case the problem persists, you also need to make changes or to adjust settings in Apache httpd ssl.config file for you to be able to have your Apache running. So how do we make changes to this file just in case we have an error arising from Apache not running or not working? So we'll find 443. By default, the SSL port is 443. By default, the SSL port is 443. So we will have to find this port. Then we will set it to a different value. Like in this case, you can see 443 is here. So you just search for 443 or you search for listen, but it is easier for us to search for 443. So you search for 443, change it to a different number. In case, that is just in case your XAMPP is not, your Apache is not running. But if it is running, then there's no need for you to make these changes. So search for 443, change it to something else, probably a bigger number like 44, 30 and so on. Then see if your XAMPP will start running. If it doesn't, you can keep changing the port numbers until you reach a point whereby your XAMPP is running. So once you do that, you can now start your Apache and MySQL. So remember, for us to create a database application, we need to have a database management system within which we will create a database and a table. So like in this case, we are using MySQL as our DBMS. So for us to create a MySQL database, we will go to admin under MySQL here. We go to admin, then launch it. So we launch it. This is the main window once we launch phpMyAdmin. So we will go to databases. We will go to databases, click on it. Then we will create a database for our application. So in this case, we can create a database called test database. Test database, then create. So once we create the database, we are going to create a table which is going to hold the data that we are going to post from our forms. So let us create a table called test table. It has 4 columns. We can make them 5. Then we go. So after creating the table plus the column, the next thing is for us to now set the column names. We want the first column to be ID. The type is integer. Then we want it to be an auto increment. AI means auto increment field. Auto increment means this field value will not be entered by the user. Instead, it will be system generated, and it will be incrementing by 1 every time you add a record. So we can go. So this one will be our primary key. So we leave it as it is. The next thing we are going to do is for us to create a column called first name, which is of type varchar. We can give it a value of 15. Then it is not null, so we just leave the rest of the options as they are. The next thing is middle name, is also of type varchar 15. We leave the rest as they are. The next field is last name. Last name is also of type varchar 15. Then the rest, we leave them as they are. The last field is of, we will call it deleted. What this field does is for it to keep or to show the status of the record, whether it is deleted or not. Remember, among the best practices of database design is not to allow the record to be completely cleared from the database. So whenever a user clears, like you present the user with the option of deleting the record, that is making it not available in the front end. But in the back end, you don't remove it completely. What you do is just give it a status such that is either deleted or not deleted. So we can give it a type. We can give it Boolean. Boolean means true or false. So the status will be deleted, true or false. Then values can remain as they are. Then all the rest can remain as they are. So we are good to go. We can create our table. We can create our table. So as you can see, our table is created. Maybe before we continue, the last thing we are going to do here is for us to set the default value for this deleted field. So we will just select here, then change. We want it to have a default value such that whenever the user posts, by default the deleted is false. So as defined, then so in database design, true means 1 and 0 means false. That is, 1 means true and 0 means false. So if we put here 0, it means by default the record is not deleted. Deletion is false. So we can save this. Okay, now that is how it is. The next thing we are going to do is for us to create our application. Now remember, for you to create any PHP application, or for any PHP application to run or to be processed, for any PHP file to be processed, it has to be placed in htdocs of the XAMPP folder. Remember, once you install XAMPP, by default, it is located in the local disk C, unless if you chose a different path during installation. Otherwise, it will be located in local disk C. So as you can see here, my XAMPP folder is here. So I open it up. After opening it up, there are various folders here, but my interest is htdocs because this is where I'll be able to run my PHP files. So I open htdocs, then I will create a folder for my application. I create a folder for my application. I can call it what? I can call it test application. I can call it test application. So this is my folder, or this is the folder where all my application files and folders will be placed. So after doing that, I will now create the HTML and PHP files. So it is good for you to use a text editor to create such files. By default, Windows comes with a text editor called Notepad, but the only challenge with Notepad is that it doesn't contain all features that will allow you to develop an application very fast. So to avoid that, you can install other free text editors that are available, such as Sublime Text, which we are going to use in this tutorial. Sublime Text is what we are going to use in this tutorial. So we open Sublime Text. So after opening Sublime Text, you can download this online. You can just search Sublime Text, then you download. So I will go to File and open my folder within Sublime Text. So I go to File, then Open Folder. So I'll go to htdocs. htdocs is there. My test application is here. I just select test application, then it will load. So as you can see, the folder is here. So we'll be adding more files and folders to this particular application. So the first thing we are going to do is to create a new file. We're going to create a new file. This one will just be an HTML file with the 3 fields, that is first name, middle name, and last name. Remember, we are not including the ID field because it is auto-generated. We are not including the deleted field because it is set, the default value has already been set. So by default, whenever you post, it is the deletion is false. So I want us to create an HTML file here. So doc type HTML. So for us to be able to allow Sublime Text to recognize HTML tags, we need to save this file first. So we will go to File, then Save As. Then we can call it index.html. index.html. As you can see, it's now recognizing the HTML tags. Index.html. Remember, index means the landing page. So if I want to access this file, I don't need to type up to index. Whenever I just type the path up to test application, then I'll be able to access the index file. By default, that is what opens. So doc type HTML. This one is for HTML5. So then I start HTML. Then I close HTML. Then it's good to indent your work so that it is easier for somebody to follow through. So head, then we can give it a title. We call it my test application. That is the title. Then we can create the body. So under the body, we are going to create these files. We are going to create these fields. So the first one is for the name. So input type equals text. That means this field will take input of type text. Then we give it a name. I will tell you the importance of giving it a name. Name equals to, say, fname. Then we can also give it an ID. I'll give you the difference between the name and the ID. ID equals, you can also give it the same name. Then we can give it a placeholder. Placeholder is what you displace in the text field when the user has not entered anything or when the field is empty. So we can call it first name. But before that, we need a label. Label. So first, that one is first name, label. I just want us to copy this, then paste. But before that, again, we need to place these controls or these elements within a form. So say form ID equals to, we are using an ID, test form. Then we can indent this inwards. So we can close our form here like that. So I want us to copy this and paste for us to move faster. So this one is middle name. So you can just change to M name here. Then this one is last name. L name. This one becomes last name, like that. So those are our text boxes or text fields for capturing the user input. The next thing we are going to do is to create a submit button. So we just call it input type is submit. ID, we can give it an ID equals to let us use button. So button, name is submit. Button type equals to submit. This one is small s. ID equals to btn submit, say, like that. So we have our form, which has all the fields that we need, plus the button for submitting. So we want, after submitting, we want this text form or this form to be submitted to a PHP file called posttest.php. So we just give it an action. First, we give it a method is post, then action equals to posttest.php. We are just first going to do a normal PHP post, but after doing this normal PHP post, I will show you how we can now submit this form using AJAX. Then I'll also show you how we can use AJAX to call the data back and also to post data to the table. So in this first case, we are just going to do a normal PHP post. So before we continue, we need to create two files. First, this posttest.php, and second, we are going to create the connection file or the database connection file. So I will add some new files here, but before that, let me save this. So I will add two new files here. So for you to create a PHP file, you start with this. You enclose them in PHP. You enclose them in PHP tags like that. So let us save this. We call it is for database connection. We can call it dbcon.php, like that. That one will be okay. So this file is for database connection. So we'll create some connection variables. For you to be able to create a connection, you will need the server name, you will need the username, you will need the password, and the database name. So we will indicate server. It will just be localhost. We are hosting it locally, so we just indicate localhost. Then user, remember to start with $sign. So all PHP variables start with $sign. So the next one is user name. It is by default, it is root, unless if you change it in Apache settings. Otherwise, by default, it is root. So we didn't change anything. That's what we are going to use. Then password is empty. We didn't set any password for our application. Then lastly is DB name or database name is equals to. So we can go back to our phpMyAdmin and see what name we gave to our database. It is test database. It is here. So we go back to our application and set the database name to test database like that. So there we are. The next thing we are going to do is to create a connection. So you will create a variable called con is equals to mysqli. MySQLi means MySQL improved. This is an improvement of the traditional MySQL, which had some loopholes such as SQL injections. So when you use MySQL, this one makes it hard for hackers to do SQL injections into your system. So we are going to use MySQL for the rest of this particular application. So MySQL connect, then the server name is, we call the server. The next thing is username. The next thing is password. The next thing is DB name or database name, like that. So that's how you create your connection string or your MySQL connection string. Then lastly, we are going to check if this connection exists or is valid or not. So if it is not connecting, we will give a message. So we will do an if statement. So if con is equivalent to false. So if there is no connection, then we will give this error. This is how you print in PHP. Just do echo. So echo could not connect to the server, like that. So that is enough. So whenever there is no connection, then this is what it will be showing to the user. So we are done with our connection file. We are creating the connection file separately to avoid creating it in every file. That's what we call separation of concerns. We don't want to be creating this connection file everywhere we want to use it. So the only thing we are going to do is just to call it. So the next thing we are going to do is to create this file. It is called posttest.php. Let me just copy this name. So we are going to add this, we are going to create this file php, like that. So we save it first for Sublime Text to be able to recognize it. So you can just save like that. So remember, in this file, in this HTML file or page, we are telling our form that whenever it is submitted, let it be call the post action, and the file involved or the file that is targeted is posttest.php. Another thing we are going to do first before we now post our data is to make all these fields required. Required means you cannot submit without filling the fields. So we make them required, make all of them required, like that. Don't need to include those ones, so you can just delete. So we are making them required such that the user cannot submit the form when it is empty. So once the form is submitted, it is sent to posttest.php. So we go to posttest.php. Then whatever we are going to do is to check if any fields or if any data has been sent from this particular form. So we will do an if statement. Then we use isSet. isSet is used to check if values have been set for a particular control. So it is called post. So we do this. If isSet post, then we will call the field name. So the field name here is what we will call. So remember, I told you we are using the ID and the name. The name is used to post directly to PHP, but the ID is mostly called in JavaScript or jQuery or AJAX. So that's the difference between the two. Once you call the name directly posts to PHP. So we are going to check if the name was post. That's the first name. So if the name was sent to the form, then we'll be able to continue. So we check all the names. So if it's set post f name, then ant. So this is how you write ant. Ant is set. So let me just copy this. We'll check all the fields if they have been filled. So we continue. So m name ant is set post l name. So this one checks all the fields if they have been set. That is how it is. Then the next thing is for us to create an insert query. The next thing is for us to create an insert query. But before we create an insert query, we need to check if this name or this data that has been sent to the form already exists or not. So we'll create a select query to check, to get all these fields from the form or from the post. So before we create a select query, we need to create variables and assign them to the values of these fields. So I'm going to create a variable called fname. Then we assign it to this. We assign it to post fname, like that. We create another variable called lname. Let me just copy this for us to move fast. Mname, and assign it to mname. We create another variable called lname and assign it to lname from the form. So the next thing we are going to do is to create a query. So we create a variable and assign it to a query. So we can say SQL, that's the variable SQL, equals to select all use star from test table where. Now we have to check the exact field names in the table. So first name, middle name, last name, like that. So we go back to our application. So where first name equals to, because it is of type varchar, we have to enclose it in single quotes. So that's why we are doing this. Then we use dot. This is how we call PHP variables. So fname, and because we are continuing, we use another dot here. So what does this mean? We are calling this variable, we are picking the value of this variable. So in the end, this variable will be enclosed in single quotes, because these double quotes, we are using it to be able to create this variable within the string or within the select statement. So and remember, this and, you should not confuse this and this and. This and is for PHP, this one is for MySQL or for SQL. So in SQL we just write and, the English one. So and middle name equals to, because it's still a string, we use mname, like that. And last name equals to, still a string or a varchar, lname. So the whole thing should be enclosed again in single quotes like that. So this is our query, which is going to check whether these fields that have been sent to our form already exist in the table or not, because there's no need of us creating a field that already exists. So then we will do a query. So query, so we can just write a variable QRY equals to mysqli query, mysqli query. Then we call. Now before this, we will need to include our database connection file, this one, because remember I told you we just need to create this file once, then whenever we want to use it we just call. So we need to include, just write require once, then we write our file. So this is how you call a file, an external file in PHP. So require once dbcon.php. So this means we will be adding this file to our post test PHP file. So here we call the connection. The connection was con, as it is here. It is con. Then the next thing is for us to call the query string SQL, like that. So we are going to check if this query returns any records, such that if it returns any records, then it exists. If it doesn't return any records, then it doesn't exist. So we can proceed with our posting. So we will do this, use if mysqli num rows. This one checks the number of rows returned by the query. So this is QRY. It checks the number of rows returned by the query, and if it is greater than 0, then it means, like, this just means records have been returned. A record, one or more records have been returned. So we just tell the user that, sorry, this record already exists, like that. Otherwise, so use else. Otherwise, we can proceed to now insert or save our records in the table. So we do another SQL. Somebody may ask, why are we still using the same? There's no worry. In any programming language, whenever you declare a variable, you can still continue using it as long as it doesn't make you lose the previous record that it held, or unless you still want to access the previous record that it held. So by default, PHP will assign another value that will give to this particular variable in this case. So SQL equals to insert into tests table. Then we specify the field, because we are not posting data into all the fields. That's why we are specifying the fields. But if we are posting data into all the fields, there was no need for us to specify the fields. Remember, in this case, we are leaving out 2 fields. So if we don't specify the fields, we will get an error of field mismatch. So we should indicate the field names we are posting data for. So middle name, then last name, then values. Remember, because they are strings, we should enclose them in single quotes. So here it is fname. Then we can, let me just copy this to make work easier instead of typing repeatedly. So we can just change this to mname. Then we can change this to lname like that. So that is how it is. This is our SQL insert query. The next thing is for us to check now if this query is successfully executed, then it means the records have been inserted into our table. So if MySQL I query is link, not link, con, then SQL. So if this means if it is true, there's no need of us indicating true, but that by default it means it is true. So if this query executes successfully, then we can echo to the user. This one displays to the user record saved successfully. Record saved successfully. So that is how it is. Let us run our application and see. So for us to run our application, we will go to the web browser. Then I want us to mark this URL up to here. We will copy this section. So this is what we will write. Localhost 90. This one will take us to, remember 90 is the port number that we set in XAMPP. By default it is 80, but because of conflict in the ports, I set it to 90. So by default when you run this, it will take you to htdocs root folder. It will take you here when you run that. But now we want to go to test application. So after the slash we write test application. After the slash we write test application. Then run. So that is how it is. I may want to make some few adjustments to the form before we continue with it. I want us to break. I want us to break after every field. Break. That is how we break. Then break like that. So we can save, then refresh and see. Yeah. So now that is how it is. Let us try to submit as it is and see. Remember, we set all the fields as required. So let us try to submit and see what it tells us. As you can see, it's telling us to fill out the fields. So let us just call this test or my test. Try still telling us that you can see. So we have to fill all the fields for us to be able to post. So let us submit and see. So as you can see, there is an error. MySQL I num rows expect parameter 1 to be MySQL I results boolean given in post test.php on line 10. So there's an error there. We need to check. Whenever you get these errors, please don't panic. Just go back to your PHP file, then check line 10. So post test.php line 10. So Let us re-examine our query string and see. We are telling SQL to select all from test table where first name. Also mark the spellings, because in most cases you'll get such errors because of the spellings, wrong spellings in the name, in the fields. So where first name equals to F name, middle name equals to M name, and last name equals to L name. So the variables are okay. We need to confirm the field names in the table. We need to confirm the field names in the table that they are matching what we are posting. So as you can see here, we wrote first name instead of first name. So we have to change this. This is where the error is coming from. So write that as first name, then save. So it has saved. Let us refresh our application and see what will happen. So this is my test app. So as you can see, record has been successfully saved. Let us check in our table if there are any records that have been added. So we browse to see if our record has been added. So as you can see, our record is here, deleted is 0, ID is 1. Let us try to post the same record and see what it will tell us. Let us try to post the same record. Let us just try. As you can see, it's now telling us, sorry, the record already exists. Let us try to post another record that is not the same as this one. Let us just call it test this one. Test this one, submit. You can see it has been successfully submitted. If we try to post the same record, it tells us, sorry, this record already exists. So this is just basic PHP. Like when you talk about posting data from HTML to PHP, basically this is what you mean. But I don't think this is appealing enough to the user because of the ability of the system to take the user to the post file, then back. So as you can see, this one makes the work very hard for the user. And that is why in the next video, I'm going to show you how to perform these posts or how to perform all these operations using what we call AJAX. AJAX means asynchronous JavaScript. Asynchronous in the sense that you don't have to refresh the page for you to be able to move between the front end and the back end and back. So you can just do all these things in the same window, and for the user will not even realize that the application has taken them to any other file or to any other location. So please stay tuned. If you are new to this channel, subscribe, comment, like, and keep tuning in for more videos. So this is part 1. In part 2, I'm going to show you how to do all this using AJAX. I'm also going to show you how to use an HTML5 Bootstrap Admin Template in your application, just to improve the visibility and appearance of your app. So please stay tuned. Thank you, and keep watching, keep subscribing, keep commenting to this particular channel, because through that you'll be able to promote this channel. Have a good time.